Other game, let's see, Limbo, Amnesia. Now we're on to 2011, 2015. L.A. Noire, Child of Eden, The Cat and the Coup, Papa When Yo, Dear Esther, Gravity Rush, Journey, Unfinished Swan, Spec Ops The Line, The Walking Dead, an episodic adventure game. Yeah, The Walking Dead has been praised for its story, meaningful character decisions, and believable character. It is often considered one of the greatest examples of storytelling in video games. I'm going to go on a little rant right now. And I was thinking about this the other day. I read, okay, I was looking for, like, examples of, like, what are the earliest forms of, like, storytelling in gaming. And I found this essay that I might have been given as a GDC talk. I think it was on the GDC website or something like that. It was called The Evolution of Storytelling in Gaming. It was a terrible essay. Like, it was really bad. The examples made no sense. It went from, like, Donkey Kong to Crash Bandicoot to Skyrim, and that was, like, their complete timeline. It was really bad. It was really poorly put together. And I was not impressed with the analysis. And it was very clear that the author was basically had like a very cursory knowledge of like gaming history, and was basically just like, they really thought they had an idea of what came out, you know. They really thought that they understood it. And in actuality, they spent most of it just talking about recent games. This is from a couple years ago, and it was just recent games they had played that had a lot of story in it. And they were talking about like Life is Strange, and Life is Strange is a game that I don't particularly care for. And I think part of that, and I think part of my aversion maybe to like The Walking Dead and the Telltale games, it's not like an outright dislike of them. I don't like Life is Strange's dialogue. I think it sounds really fucking bad. That's a personal taste. I don't really know that much about The Walking Dead story, but here's what annoys me about, not the games. I should mention that. So the part that I get frustrated at is not the games themselves. What I get frustrated at is when people refer to them as these like monumental steps forward in video games, and the way that their stories are presented, and like storytelling in oh my god, it's an evolution of storytelling in games. And I look at them and I'm like, I look at like The Walking Dead and the Telltale games, and I'm like, this is just a choose your own adventure book. That's what this is. This is a choose your own adventure book adapted into a game. And that doesn't mean that it's bad. I don't want to imply that, because it's not what I mean. And if you like them, that's not an issue. I totally believe that there's great writing in the Walking Dead games, at the very least. I 100% like believe when people tell me that they're really well written. I'm not questioning that. And I'm not criticizing the games or the people who enjoy them. What I'm criticizing is the discussion around what they represent, because I think it's completely misguided. It's totally false. And I think as time has shown, no, it was not an evolution of storytelling in games. It was just, oh, now we know how to do this kind of a thing in games. It is when I think of something that's an evolution of storytelling in games, I generally, here's my sticking point for The Walking Dead and things like that, is that you don't really need to like play the games to know the games. You have to like, you can absorb everything in those games perfectly well by watching a let's play of them. And I kind of take issue with that kind of praise for games that I don't think have to be games, if that makes sense. I realize that like maybe it's a little hypocritical, because like I haven't played it. Maybe I haven't played it. I'm willing to admit that. I just don't know what more I would get out of playing them if I had already watched the games, right? And if you have played them, or if you watched like a Let's Play of one of these kinds of games, and then you went and played it, tell me actually, like, was that experience, like, did you feel like you were, once you played it, you were like, there's a whole part of this experience that I was not getting just watching a Let's Play. Because when I think of, like, a game I actually consider, like, a real, like, one of the best examples of, like, boundary-pushing kind of storytelling in games, I think of Deus Ex. I think about that game pretty often ever since I've played it. And I think about it, and I realize that, like, Deus Ex could only have been a game. It doesn't work in any other medium. And the reason for that is, like, yeah, technically you could adapt the literal story into, like, a book or a TV series. Not a movie. God, it would be way too long. But, like, yeah, you could adopt the literal plot, right? But one of the most important things about Deus Ex is that you're playing it. It's that you have, the thing that was so innovative about it at the time was that it was a new kind of game, in the sense that it gave you this degree of freedom of how you wanted to tackle the game in so many, like, every single situation has so many different ways that you can go about it. And the reason that is because the entire game is about choice, not just gameplay wise, but, like, thematically, story wise. Deus Ex is like fundamentally a game about asking the player questions, not just through, like, the story, but the game as well, like the design of the levels. The game, when the game asks you these questions, like should human beings even be allowed to govern themselves? That is, like, it's the same principle as, like should human beings have the choice to govern themselves? Like, who should be allowed to control things? How much power should we have over our lives, right? And there's so many, like, thematic things in the plot itself that reflect that. But in the gameplay, it's expressed in the gameplay. The game literally asks you questions of, how are you going to accomplish this mission? How are you going to do this? Are you going to, like, take this kind of a route? Are you going to take that kind of a route? What kind of items will you use? How will you manipulate the behavior of the guards? How violent are you going to be? The entire game is about giving the player choice. Like these are very intentional. This was not accidental that these two things coalesce so well. These two aspects of the game coalesce so well, is to the point where it's practically like a singular thing. Deus Ex was a story that they wanted to tell about choice, and the game had to be like this. It had to give you an unprecedented level of freedom in how you chose to play it, because otherwise, if the game was stiff, you wouldn't feel that choice. You wouldn't feel the themes. You play the themes of the game, and ultimately you are given the choices in the story that, like, the game allows you to make the story. One of the main character, JC, is, like, specifically, like, there's these, like, hints and dialogues that, like, he is a special kind of person. He's a special new kind of person, and the thing that's special about him is that he gets to make a choice. He gets to make a choice about what his existence means. The player gets to make that choice. Literally, you get to do it. And like, I'm like, fuck. That's, like, this could only be a video game. It would not hit nearly as hard. It would not be nearly as strong or symbolic if you were just watching this play out on the screen as just a disconnected audience member. You have to be JC. You have to be him for it to work. That's what's so incredible about it. Go play Deus Ex, goddammit. I get annoyed when I see these games that are basically just, like, this could have just been a book. This could have been a choose-your-own-adventure book with very good writing, with good characters, with competent storytelling, good voice acting, whatever, what have you. but like it didn't have to be a game. And to be fair, not everything has to be a game, right? Not everything has to be so unique that it has to be just a game. Like there's a lot of fucking movies. There's a lot of movies, television series. They could have been anything else. Music is honestly kind of hard to adapt into other stuff. But like, plenty of things that I would consider great in other mediums. You know, that don't have to be what they are, right? This is one of the problems with like Berserk. A lot of adaptations of Berserk is that like there's decent adaptations, there's good adaptations of Berserk, but like the manga feels like there's just this like atmosphere and there's mood in the manga that comes from it being black and white, and the way that Miura uses like the qualities of manga, the fact that you're turning a page, the fact that he can just draw a scene and the viewer's eye can just linger on it, and you can just kind of like explore this incredibly detailed panel he's created, and like the way that he communicates emotion is so specific to the medium of like comics, right? The medium of manga. It's so specific. And you can adapt. You can competently adapt that, but you can't get the whole thing. You can't get the full picture. Unless you were, really creative, but and had a lot of budget and time. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of admiration. I think that's probably why I lean very heavily towards games that are very, let's say, gameplay focused, as well, a lot of people would describe it. A lot of my favorite games are very gameplay focused, like Tetris, Doom, Blood, fighting games, these kinds of things. Because to me, it's like they can't be anything but games, and the things that they evoke are unique. Are unique to the medium. There's like a very special connection. There's like a feeling. I remember the first time I played Doom. And this was back when I was like didn't really care about FPS games. And I remember getting the shotgun for the first time and like turning a corner. There was an imp there and I just fucking blasted him. And this fucking dinky little game from 1993 made me feel insane. The feeling, I was like, the first time I ever shot an imp with the shotgun in Doom, I was like, like that gif of a little man, little guy. Who's a little guy? Who's that little gentleman with the egg? Danny DeVito, that's his name. You know that gif of Danny DeVito where it's like zooming in on him and he goes, "I get it now." That was me. That was me when I shot that imp for the first time. I was like, oh, like I just don't get that feeling from anything else, right? You don't get that feeling of connection to the game. Just, the feedback that like I did something in this medium. It's like it's incredible. It's like I have it's a very special connection to me, and I appreciate very much games that are able to express, that are able to tap into that and be that. I respect it a lot.